So, new mic, new camera, still the same old butt that's not an economist, sat in the same old armchair pretending to not be the armchair general that he is. But you know who else should have stuck to being an armchair general and not pretend to be a grand military strategist? Putler. Because if you look at how well this war is going that he started, supposedly to counter NATO expansion, it becomes clear that he's really not Caesar reincarnate. Putler uses NATO expansion to justify his own campaign of military aggression and expansion, but let's be clear about a few things concerning NATO. First of all, NATO is a defensive alliance. NATO was initially founded back in 1949 to counter Soviet imperialism and the threat that it poses against Europe. Following the collapse of the USSR, NATO has been in something of an existential crisis, we might say, with only Islamic terrorism bringing it back to life and relevance, and that was something that the alliance sorely needed. It is a lie that there was a commitment to not expand NATO eastwards after the collapse of the Soviet Union, and even Mikhail Gorbachev admitted as much. No legally binding commitment exists limiting the expansion of NATO eastwards. NATO is not beholden to Russia, or the Russia state, like I call it, to not expand anywhere. Also, NATO does not expand by conquering territories and annexing countries. Countries must voluntarily apply to join NATO, and they also must be accepted unanimously by all existing member states after meeting certain conditions. And one key condition for joining NATO is that a candidate country must not have any outstanding and unresolved conflicts of a military nature or territorial disputes, as due to NATO's Article 5. If one country is attacked, then that is considered an attack on all of NATO, and all NATO countries are supposed to respond to an attack on any one of them as if they themselves were attacked. And so, a country in conflict with territorial disputes joining NATO would instantly drag the whole alliance into the conflict, and that's something that NATO aims to avoid. So, Ukraine joining NATO has not been feasible since at least 2014 with the Donbass and Crimea situation. Membership in NATO is not only voluntary but also optional, and a country must want to join NATO and it must be accepted by all existing members of the alliance in order to join, as we already mentioned. And there is even the precedent of France under de Gaulle deciding to withdraw from the alliance's military structure. It only re entered fully into the NATO alliance military structure back in 2009. Compare that to how the Russia state expands, how countries join NATO versus how countries join the Russia state. Furthermore, in his attempts to counter NATO expansion, Putler actually made Sweden and Finland, which were two traditionally neutral countries, decide that they want to reconsider their stance on neutrality and join NATO, which led to the doubling of the alliance's border with the Russian state and also placing NATO on the Russian state's doorstep, basically 200 kilometers from St. Petersburg. To put it another way, in my broken Russo-Bulgarian, нравится, не нравится, моя красавица, НАТО расширяется. Anyway, that was the result of Putin's campaign against Ukraine and trying to stop NATO expanding. He managed to get NATO to expand, and that's something that maybe someone could have asked him in the beginning. Do you want NATO expansion? Because that's how you get NATO expansion. Anyway, if you like this video, uh, that's all I had for it. I've been Alex. I've not been an economist. I've not been a military strategist. I'm just some guy in an armchair pretending to be an armchair general with my non economist butt sat here on this armchair that I'm sitting in. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Tell me in the comments below how I don't understand and that NATO really did promise Mikhail Gorbachev to not expand eastwards after the collapse of the USSR and the fall of the Berlin Wall. Subscribe to the channel for future videos, and if you want to support this channel, there will be links below to help the channel grow and expand and improve in quality. The links will be in the description. And since this is a video tangentially related to the topic of the war in Ukraine, I'm going to say the following to conclude. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes, and Russia delenda est.